Daily Tech News Show is made possible by you listening right now. Thanks to all of you, including Kirk Stephenson, Miranda Janelle, that Charlie dude, and brand new patrons Andrew and Justin. Yay! On this episode of DTNS, Pew says almost half of young people get news from social media influencers. We'll talk about what we think of that. Decentralized identity management's coming to Belgium. And Trisha Hershberger is here, just got back from India. She's going to tell us about the tech she learned about there. This is the Daily Tech News for Monday, November 18th, 2024 in Los Angeles. I'm Tom Merritt.
I'm the show's producer, Roger Chang.
And joining us, TV host and streamer Trisha Hershberger. Welcome back.
Hi, thank you so much for having me. It's always lovely being here chatting tech with y'all. So I'm excited to be here.
I'm always excited to have you too, Trish. I can't wait to talk about what you learned in India, both tech and food.
Yes, all of it.
All of it. Let's start with the quick hits. Roblox has begun adding child safety features to address several concerns. Users younger than 13 won't be able to DM players outside of games or experiences. They'll also no longer have access to particular experiences, social hangouts, or any experience with free-form writing and drawing. And they'll need parental permission to do DMs at all, though that part's rolling out between now and Q1. Parents and caregivers can now have their own accounts to manage things like screen time and permissions instead of having to log into the child's account to do it. And finally, content labels will replace age ratings on labels, though those labels will have some age ratings themselves. For example, users younger than 9 will only be able to access minimal or mild content. Mac Rumors contributor Aaron Paris noticed that Apple's Lightning to 3.5 millimeter headphone jack adapter isn't available in almost any Apple store around the world. Apple started making the adapter when it removed the headphone jack from the iPhone 7. However, only 3 models that Apple sells have the Lightning port, so Apple's expected to discontinue those next year. It looks like maybe it already discontinued the adapter. The Competition Commission of India has ordered WhatsApp to stop sharing user data with other parts of Meta's business for the purposes of advertising. That prohibition is going to last 5 years and comes with a fine. WhatsApp must also now provide an opt-out and more transparency about what information might be shared. WhatsApp stopped giving an opt-out option with its 2021 privacy policy, and the commission found that was an abuse of its dominant market position. President Trump has nominated FCC Commissioner Brendan Carr to take over as chair of the agency when the new administration takes over. Carr's already a commissioner. He'll just take over as chair. He's a proponent of limiting the scope of Section 230 safe harbor provisions, supports a ban of TikTok in the U.S., and is against net neutrality rules being changed. Current chair Jessica Rosenworcel's term ends with the end of the current Congress on January 3rd. Net neutrality rules that her commission put in place last year were blocked by a court in August and would likely be suspended by Carr. He'll just roll that back should he be confirmed as commissioner, which is expected to happen. Finally, Wi-Fi 8 won't come out for many years, probably like 2028, but Mediatech's Philogic Wireless division has released some details on what you can expect when that next protocol finally gets finalized. In some ways, it'll be the same as Wi-Fi 7. Same frequency bands, same peak theoretical speed, which is 23 gigabits per second, but Wi-Fi 8 is going to work on improving reliability. It will let access points coordinate and steer devices that are close to each other so they don't interfere with each other's transmissions. A lot of the methods for doing this are still being tested and determined, but the idea is to put in protocols that improve the way things connect so you get effectively a faster connection more often and definitely get a more reliable connection without having to increase the capacity of Wi-Fi. Pew Research Center found that about 20% of people surveyed in the U.S. get news from influencers on social media. These are defined as people that have at least 100,000 followers on the major platforms. Could be from an established outlet, could be from anywhere. That rose to 37% for people younger than 30. 37% of people younger than 30 surveyed got news from influencers on social media. Pew said of the folks who do get their news that way, 65% said they found information they got from news influencers helps them understand the world. So they're saying, I believe what I hear from these folks. X is the most popular source, 85%, followed by Instagram, YouTube, Threads, Facebook, and TikTok in that order. More of the influencers that were qualifying under this definition identified as conservative and male overall and on most platforms, except for TikTok. On TikTok, more of the news influencers that people were following identified as liberal and tended to be women. Trish, you kind of got your start doing this, right?
It's true. I mean, we won a Streamy Award for Best News Channel only a couple years in. But yeah, I got my start on the internet talking about the news. And kind of the wild thing about it, Tom, is that, we were just comedians and actors and, none of us had journalism backgrounds. And we were really setting out to make something that was infotainment. We were trying to make something that was funny, but also informed you about things going on in the world. And we would hear things all the way back then. So I'm talking like 2012, 2013, that people were saying, you're the only news I watch. You're the only news I like. And at the time we were like, oh no, please don't do that. We're just making the funnies. Like we don't have a background in this. But I think now in an era where even the news people watch on television is entertainment news, for a lot of people, I don't see a vast difference between entertainment news media and what influencers are putting out on these various different platforms. Now, if you want to talk about traditional news media that is fact-checked and like an actual news giving you the fact source as opposed to entertainment news, I do think there's differences there that would be helpful for people. I mean, whether you're getting entertainment news or you're getting influencer news, it comes with a particular bias. Just by the fact that it's coming in that person's voice. And in general, it's great to be well-rounded, but I think we know a lot of people prefer to hear what they want to hear, not necessarily a well-rounded, fact, opinionless version.
Yeah, I think that's one of the main things that happens with this kind of news is people say, well, I like it because it's independent. I feel like I'm getting the story that I wouldn't get from mainstream media, which covers things up. Roger, what's your behavior with this?
I mean, it's interesting because the ones I do follow are on YouTube. But I typically follow people I already know about. In other words, they are people who are either journalists and they write in a traditional newsprint or like a newspaper magazine, or they have submitted or they have written about a topic long enough, not just like a couple of years, but like 20 plus years. And I'll follow them or their former former politicians or political insiders who've worked at long enough. One person I follow, for example, is Molly mentioned him once, Peter Zahan, and he's a geopolitical strategist. It's not like I trust all of his analysis, but what he offers is sort of a contextual element to a news. For example, if a new breakthrough in semiconductor technology, what that could mean broader, what it can mean broadly for the economy, because it could do A, B, and C for different segments of a production supply chain. And so it offers a little more context, but I will say that it supplements what I normally read as news rather than a replacement.
We're talking about current events and civic issues here too. Like some people in the chat are like, what about you? Are you guys news influencers? And in a certain way we are, in a certain way we are. But we're talking about tech news specifically. This is more often, and the Pew Research study said this is mostly political news that people are following in these places. In the past, because newspapers and television had been around long enough, and mostly because television was so expensive to do, there were fewer sources, and you had a back of the envelope way to calculate, who to trust and who you could rely on. Now what are the signals? How do you know if you're following an influencer that is just fun, like, and you like, but is not telling you things that are true and misleading you, or that you're actually getting the inside scoop and getting insight that you wouldn't get elsewhere, which is also happening. Like, I don't know that, I'm not saying we need a bureau to put a stamp on people, but I don't know that we've developed a way as a society to tell that easily.
Yeah, I mean, I would say the biggest thing is someone having worked in digital news, and meaning like political and world event kind of digital news, is that there's probably a range, right? So there's a range of people who are just starting out, maybe a team of one, don't have the resources necessarily to be boots on the ground. Journalism, don't have the resources to have like a fact-checking department or anything like that, doing the best they can. If those are the type of people you're listening to, I would say you're probably better off going to a couple different sources instead of just that one source. Now, that being said, at this point, there's digital news influencers, if you want to call them that are probably just as robust as networks you would watch on television. To your points that Roger and Tom, that you've been saying of how long have they been doing it, right? Like, these are all things that increase credibility. And I think whether it airs on digital or a more traditional format, I think both should be held to the same standards, if you will.
Yeah. I think when it's a traditional format, you've got easier cues to know, like, oh, this is an opinion show. Okay, I know to have my shields up a little more. These are personalities that we know have been doing this for a long time. I don't have to look into them. They're familiar faces. So it's easier. The standards are exactly the same, though. I think that's a really good point. It's just a little more difficult to figure out how to evaluate folks if you don't know them. Now, if you're seeing people you know and have followed for a long time, then I think that makes a difference. And what kind of information they provide you. If they're just telling you things and not providing a lot of sources or attribution or giving you links to, what I love about Jen Briney's Congressional Dish is she's like, don't believe anything I say on this podcast. I have links to, all of the congressional sources if you want to go dig them up and find out yourself. And that's those kinds of attitudes I think are important as well.
Agreed.
All right, let's talk about managing your identity. I've solved it. We no longer have to worry about personal identity hacks or anything else. I actually didn't do anything, but I have been a supporter for a while of Tim Berners-Lee's Solid. I have been of late getting a little pessimistic that anyone would use Solid, but the Belgian region of Flanders is using Tim Berners-Lee's Inrupt startup to offer data wallets based on the Solid protocol. All 7 million citizens will have access to the service, and 5 Belgian hospitals have agreed to integrate and store patient information in the wallets or pods. Now, Trish, I'm curious if you've even heard of Solid or if you have, what you know about it.
This is my first time hearing about it. And I mean, my knee-jerk response is, wait, there could be a centralized location for all of my data that I could just easily share with different practitioners. This sounds amazing.
Yeah.
But also, what is the security on that data?
Right. And the idea is to keep the information under your control. So it's decentralized in the sense that it is not held in one place, but it's centralized for you in the fact that all of your information is in one pod. And then the theory is you control who has access to what information in your pod. And over time, if you change, you're like, you know what? I don't want Facebook to have that anymore. You change it in your pod and they no longer have it. So you don't have to rely on them safeguarding your information. You don't have to rely on them saying, oh no, we deleted it. Wink, wink. It's all under your control. Now, to your second question, the importance is in the protocol, how the protocol works. And I'm not going to go into a deep dive on that, but Tim Berners-Lee has developed a protocol that is going to be secure when properly implemented so that only you have access to it and only you can give access to other people, and it's easily revocable. You can run it yourself. If you're like, I don't trust anybody else, you can have your own server, just like you do with a website. And you can run your own pod and it would work in the system like anyone else's. However, just like with banks, most of us don't keep our money in our house. We find trusted third parties to store our money securely for us and guard it for us. Tim Berners-Lee imagines that startups that follow the proper protocol could be developed that are audited and provide a third-party service to host these for you, and they have no interest in doing anything but safeguarding them because you would stop being, being their client otherwise. Inrupt is the first example of that. So Tim Berners-Lee started Inrupt as a template to say, let me show you what that kind of company would look like. And this is the first widespread test of Inrupt being able to provide a service at all.
Now, with all of that information being said, Tom, is this something you in its current state are like, yes, I want in on this?
Oh, absolutely. Yeah.
Okay.
I would, if I were Belgian, if I lived in Flanders and I was a customer of one of these hospitals, which, the pie keeps getting a little narrower every time I add a category, I would absolutely do this. The protocol itself is, as you might say, solid. I think it's very well done. I think Inrupt is probably trustworthy in so much that it is also being set up by Tim Berners-Lee. So it has a vested interest in doing everything right. So I would prefer there eventually would be competition if this were to take on. But yeah, I think this solves so many issues where we don't trust sharing data because we just don't know. And sharing data would be beneficial for us, but because we've lost trust in companies, we don't share data. If we had control and we're like, you can revoke the data anytime you want, you will keep the data. They don't have the data. It's in your pod, not theirs. I think that would make a lot of things more productive and easier to deal with.
Yeah, and feel better about your security. To your point of like right now, I feel like any platform you sign up for wants all your data, wants access to your Google account, your Meta account, your whatever, and all of the information that comes with that. It would be really nice instead of having to like make it rain your information all the time for access. If you had one specific place that you had control of that data, I think that would be awesome. And especially when it comes to health information. I don't know how it works in Belgium, but at least here in the US, with the insurance situation being the way it is, a lot of us have to switch providers fairly frequently.
Mm-hmm.
And it's a big pain in the butt to try to get all your data over the years and all your history over the years to a new provider, if it's even possible at all. I feel like if I can get like the last 5 years of my history to a new provider, I'm doing a really great job. So if this could help longer term with that, then that could have long-term health benefits for everyone as well, not just convenience benefits.
Yeah, because it's way easier to be HIPAA compliant when the data is all under your control. Because the whole point of HIPAA regulations in the US are, well, the patient must give authorization. And so that's what ties you up is like, well, do they have authorization? Like, well, let's make sure. And then, the three parties aren't talking to each other and they don't want to do anything wrong because they don't want to get sued and fall afoul and get fined. Whereas if you had something like this, it would be very clear. Like, yes, I've given the authorization. That's all you need to know. And it can be shared. And even for less serious things than health, if I'm like, you know what? I really want Google to customize my video recommendations, but I don't want them to use it for third-party advertising. Mm-hmm. You can specify that. With Solid, you could say, like, you are allowed to have my viewing history for this purpose only. You may not, no third-party domain can access it. And also the term says, I am giving a term that says you can't use it for advertising targeting.
I love that. Thumbs up. All the convenience with none of the privacy infringement.
It's probably a little more management of your personal data than we're all used to, since we have virtually no management of our personal data. So I could see that being a hang up where people just go for default settings, or don't manage it closely. That would be its downfall or one of the downsides. But overall, I want it to do well. So I'm very happy that they're finally getting a wide scale test. Folks, what do you want to hear us talk about on the show? One way to let us know is our subreddit. You can submit stories and vote on them at reddit.com/r/Daily Tech News Show. Mediatech showcased its Dimensity 9400 chipset at This Chip Changes Everything event alongside Oppo's upcoming Find X8 Pro and Find X8 smartphones. Trisha, you were there in India. How was it?
I was there in India. It was awesome. I learned a ton about the tech landscape in India that I didn't know before. And that really helped inform at least my opinion and my experience of what Mediatek does, like in a very tangible way. Because while we see Mediatek in a lot of smart devices here in the States, it's not, the Mediatek Dimensity 9400 would not traditionally be in the States like what we think of when we think flagship phones, flagship chips, right?
Yeah.
And so as much as we hear like, oh, but it's really big globally, it was awesome to be there in person and see how influential it is globally.
What was the biggest surprise you had of the things that you learned there?
Well, I had never been to India before. So that was very different and overwhelming. But really just seeing the transformation of the tech landscape in India over the last 5 to 10 years. So just to give you an example, currently Mediatek is powering more than 50% of the phones in India. So like 51% of the 5G market there, which is a huge market with a very discerning tech population. So to put it in perspective, again, I know you've got global listeners here, but for the folks in the States, India has a population of 1.43 billion and a mobile density of about 83% versus the US population, which is only 335 million. So when you compare that, just the sheer amount of smartphones and smartphone market that's in India is incredible. And what they've done in the last 5 to 10 years, thanks to kind of this smartphone and phone revolution that's happening there, is it's able to help reduce damage and save lives in the event of natural disasters. It's able to help democratize education there. They have an electronic payment service that they use there called UPI, which is, it's universal payment. That's what they use for, but it really is quite widespread. Pretty much everybody knows how to use it and uses it every single day. So boosting digital literacy in India, like that was a lot of what I learned while I was there. Plus, of course, expanding that it's not just mobile. There's tons of smart devices that we know and love. The Amazon Echo devices are Mediatek powered, a lot of smart TVs, a lot of scooters, some auto interfaces, and really just very, very widespread. But the big thing that I learned in India, being that it was my first time in India, was essentially the transformation of the Indian tech landscape in the past decade or so.
So when you say 83% mobile density, that means 83% of the populace has a smartphone?
Has a phone. So I believe it's 83%
or
mobile density and a slightly smaller version than that's smartphones.
And the medium range phones there, how capable are they? Because it feels like they're more capable than the old, Nokia candy bar we had back in the 90s.
So I'm glad that you asked that. It was like the perfect segue. But one of the phones that's made in India, I was given a little sample of to check out. It's the Lava Agni 3 phone, and it's got the Dimensity 7300X processor in it, which is a more mid-range, to your point. But mid-range, as we know it here, is different than mid-range or budget there. So technically, the Lava Agni 3 phone, I guess, would be considered a budget phone here in the US. But some of the features that it has are pretty out of this world. So it can do 4K HDR video.
Okay.
Let me see if I remember how to turn on. It's got a dual AMOLED screen. So we've got a little screen here in the back too. Let me see if I can turn him on for us, because there's like a little guy that hangs out there as well. All right. But you can use that back screen to check notifications, to check your calls. You can use it to take pictures using the rear facing.
Oh, it's right by the camera. I see. Cool. Yeah.
Yeah. Like there's a lot of these features that we would typically see here on the higher end devices that are in a phone that's essentially like curved AMOLED display, curved edges, an easy key button, a lot of stuff that we would see on what we would consider a mid-range phone here in the States, probably $500 to $700.
Yeah.
What this retails for there is around 25,000 rupees, which is about 275 to 300 US dollars.
Okay. Yeah. That's definitely at the low end.
Right. And that's for all these extra features that you can get. Oh, here's the little guy I was trying to show you for anyone that's watching this. Oh, hey,
you have a little puppy on your notification screen. That's cute.
He's a little dude, and you can check your notifications, and you can use your camera and all sorts of other really fun stuff that, again, here you're going to see on the higher end phones, but they're really making it more affordable because you have such a discerning tech consumer base in India. So they have to be more competitive.
And with 83% penetration too, I think sometimes folks here, I get the sense that they assume, well, most of the world doesn't have tech. And I know we're just talking about India. We're not talking about the entire world, but India is a big chunk of the world, as you just said. It's 1.4 billion people. So, that's a ninth of the world. And it seems like everyone's using tech to some extent.
Yes. Yeah. I mean, that's like I said, UPI. I mean, they were kind of joking that like even people who aren't able to read know how to pay for things using UPI on their phone.
Yeah.
Like to do tap to pay because it's now become that universally adopted. But yeah,
you hit the right icon and tap, done.
I feel like getting 5G connectivity, getting Bluetooth 4.0, Wi-Fi 6E, like these are all things we list in a more premium phone, available for roughly the equivalent of $275 in India. Pretty cool.
That's an interesting question too. What is the mobile service like there? The data service.
It's hard to say because I wasn't using a local SIM while I was there. But they do have 5G towers everywhere, and they're very like to point them out to you.
Yeah. I'm sure. Well, Trish, thank you for sharing your experience with us. I appreciate that.
Yeah, it was really fun. And I mean, the Dimensity 9400 chip, which is the new chip that Mediatech was talking about, this chip changes everything, will be on a global launch phone that folks in the States can try out here themselves for the Oppo Find X8 series, which I believe is globally launching in just a few days on the 21st.
Fantastic. And presumably will be, in that affordable price range, even here in the US.
Well, the Dimensity 9400 is their flagship. So that is going to be considered more of a premium phone.
Yeah, but probably not Galaxy S25 level.
We'll see.
I guess we'll find out. All right, let's check out the mailbag. Ian wanted to share this about our Friday discussion on Good Day Internet about Game Pass Ultimate. Ian says, Game Pass Ultimate has solved the annual question of what do you want for Christmas from my daughter. I am old like Tom, and my daughter is in her 30s. I never have an answer for her as I don't know I need anything. So starting a couple of years ago, my daughter got me the $60 Canadian 3-month Game Pass subscription card and gets one for each gift-giving event, Christmas, birthday, and Father's Day. So I only have to get one card to get a year of Game Pass Ultimate. Plus, by buying them from Costco, they're only $55. There you go. So we were mentioning Game Pass as being a good gift on Friday. It's the perfect gift for Ian.
It is the perfect gift for everyone. I say this every holiday season since Game Pass has been a thing. If you're buying a gift for someone who plays games and either you don't know what games they have, you don't know what games they like, you're looking for something small that can fit in a card or a stocking, Game Pass. Boom. Done. Easy.
Yeah. And you're not just buying them a gift card, like, well, you decide what to get. You're buying them unlimited games, essentially. Yeah.
Yes. Hundreds, if not thousands of games that you have access to for whatever time period you buy it for.
That's amazing. Well, Trisha Hershberger, thank you so much for joining me today. If folks want to keep up on what you've been doing and where you're streaming and all the things you do, where should they go?
You can find me on twitch.tv/Trisha Hershberger. YouTube is also Trisha Hershberger, but everywhere else, whether that be Instagram, TikTok, any of the different text apps right now, I'm pretty much everywhere at that girl Trish with no I in the girl. So just that GRL Trish. And I cover an amalgamation of tech, video games, tabletop games, and toys and collectibles. So come on by.
You won't be disappointed. Go check it out. It's that girl Trish with no I in the girl. There you go. Done. Leave the I in the Trish, though. Don't forget that part. Tomorrow, we're doing another experiment. We did this back in October. We are going to do Daily Tech News Show and GDI separately. So a supersized GDI. Daily Tech News Show will have me and I think Wentway Dow on it and an interview with Andrew Heaton. Good Day Internet will be live 1 p.m. to 2 p.m. Pacific. So if you're not a patron, you're going to want to check it out live or catch it on demand on Twitch or YouTube if you want to get that stuff. We have an expanded discussion on some interesting stories we're finding on the day. We're going to touch on the news of the day, and we're going to talk to Brett Rounceville from Yes More and Company about putting holiday shopping on easy mode. So check it out. It's me, Brett Rounceville, Sarah Lane, Rob Dunwood, Roger Chang, right here on youtube.com/Daily Tech News Show or twitch.tv/Good Day Internet. Patrons, stick around for the extended show, Good Day Internet. We're going to talk to Trish about her trip to India. We've got some new stuff in the Daily Tech News Show store to show you. You can also catch the show live Monday through Friday, 4 p.m. Eastern, 2100 UTC. Find out more at dailytechnewsshow.com/live. Back tomorrow with the supersized GDI and DTNS. Talk to you then.
The DTNS family of podcasts, helping each other understand.
Diamond Club hopes you have enjoyed this program.